Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This is going to be for the chapters that make up volume 12 of the manga, chapters 98 to 106. Obviously this is another volume that hasn't yet been released in English, but these are the chapters that are in the Japanese volume. So this is volume 12, as we will get it. This is obviously continuing on from the end of the last volume where we ended the Goldie Pond arc, and basically going forward to give context to this, set up that Peter Rattray is not just going to stand by and let the kids just be escaped, effectively. That the kids know in the shelter that someone's coming after them. They've done too much. The shelters will eventually be discovered, because at the start of chapter 98 they reveal that there are dummy shelters. So that's more or less the kind of setup as we sort of jump in here, with a brief shot of December 2031 showing the supporters of William Minerva being taken out under Peter Rattray's orders. And then we skip ahead to more or less present, March 2046, and Andrew, who will later learn his name, who's the leader of this kind of team of 8 soldiers, who has been tasked with finding the shelters and eliminating all of the kids. So they do an interesting thing in the first chapter where they just kind of show half of the pages are basically Andrew raiding a shelter which appears to be empty, and then the kids being in a shelter happy. There's so many kids, it's all working well, and you're wondering, are they in the shelter or what? But this is obviously by the end where they reveal the idea that there are dummy shelters. It's also revealed that they did contact the supporters. They rang the phone, and the idea is that there's meant to be a response in 24 hours. There wasn't. So that's sort of the basic setup there. This is where we get introduced to Andrew, who over the phone is told by Peter Rattray to dispose of all of the children. It's revealed then that actually they had to wait 7 days, but they did get a response over the phone. Someone actually spoke to them. It wasn't a recording. It just says, sorry, I cannot meet with you now. I'll contact you soon. Be careful. Enemy is Peter Rattray, William Minerva's younger brother, head of Rattray family. Don't move from there. I'll come for you. Promise. So just to set up that there are supporters out there, but the question is wait, does Peter Rattray know about this and has kind of hijacked the supporter structure, or is there actually a supporter out there? That's the setup. And then obviously, how long will it be before all the dummy shelters kind of run out and they're actually found out? So that's what we kind of get going forward here. Next chapter 99, they basically start the idea of, okay, so what is the plan? What actually is the plan to get to the 7 walls? Because this has been probably the biggest mystery in a way of the series up to now. There's obviously a lot of backstory stuff with the demon, but in terms of stuff that they set up that is just kind of vague, nothing has been more vague than the 7 walls. Mujika, I think, was the first one to mention it. Then I think it was mentioned by William Minerva. Yes, it was, yeah. And this is the third choice. If you go here, you can basically, the idea seems to be that you can renegotiate a promise with him, and that will solve things in a better way than just breaking the promise or just them secretly, just saving themselves. They want to change the world basically through this. Find the Promised Neverland in a way. So this is where we get the setup. The chapter is called Kuvitidala. I don't know how to pronounce this properly. It could be Kuvitidala, Kuvitidala. I'm just going to say it whatever way it comes out of my mouth, basically. The way that flows the most nicely, for me at least. Even if it's completely wrong. So this is where we get introduced to, I suppose, what were their clues? Because we were told previously by Emma that the pen literally said how to get to the 7 walls. It's actually a bit of a kind of mystery, but we'll see how they go about explaining it here. So it says, search for day and night with the eyes of the dragon of Kuvitidala. Go first 10 rai north, then 10 rai east, then 10 rai south, then 10 rai west, then 10 rai to the sky, then 10 rai to the ground. When the arrow stops between the sands and the sun sets in the east, the earth will moan and the walls will appear. The thing which separates us and them, that is the 7 walls. So the kids immediately point out the fact that, wait, those directions make absolutely no sense from the perspective of, like, you know, where you start and where you end is the exact same point. If you go north, east, south, west, you end up at the point where you started. And then if you go up and down the same amount, you also end up at the same point. What does that mean? They then obviously look up the reference of Kuvitadala, which they reveal was actually found in some of the ancient manuscripts they have, that they figure have gone all the way back to like about 1,000 years ago, when the promise was first made by one of the early Ratri clan members, and it's mentioned about the dragon of Kuvitadala. And they figured that here is the location of the place known as Kuvitadala. Search for day and night with the eyes of the dragon of Kuvitadala. So that's the kind of key thing, because they're wondering, of course, you know, okay, go 10 this way, 10 this way, 10 this way, but like from where? So they have to go here first, Kuvitadala, and then go to the locations that are, you know, 10 from there, basically. That's their sort of starting point. So that's the question. They immediately figure out they have to go to D528-143. That's where they have to go. And it's revealed they can't all go because the supporter told them to stay there. So their first priority has to be to the shelter. Of course, Emma and Ray immediately stand up. They're going to go, but who else? And the best thing here, this is a great moment, Ray immediately is like, okay, me and Emma are going, but also Don and Gilda. And it's such a great moment because, you know, the others are like, wait, why Don and Gilda? But they obviously stand up for them. They're like, you know, they're completely reliable. They helped the entire time. And it's an emotional moment because finally Don and Gilda are being included. So often than not, they've had to be basically just the replacement leaders. Their actual leaders have left. They just have to remain behind with the others. But finally they get a chance to sort of prove themselves, go with their friends, and not have to just, you know, stay back and hope that they come back alive. So, you know, pretty nice moment here. They're going to do their best. Yugo is obviously being very protective at this point and is like, take these two with you as well. So Zach and Violet are also going to go from the Goldie Pond group. So we have 6 of them heading out on the trek to Kuvitadala. And that's what happens here. That's where we end this chapter with them heading out. Next chapter, chapter 100, is an interesting one. Obviously, milestone for the series. 100th chapter, and usually there is something significant about it. Most, I think, manga writers do try to have something important happen, and I think we do here. We start off with Phil. Out of nowhere, we just cut back to Phil. It's been 2 months, a lot has happened. Carol can say more words now. Mine and Sherry's scores have gone up. Eugene, Charlie, and Milotz's have gone up as well. But I don't know about the others. After the fire, we were separated and sent to other related facilities. Same house under the same sky. We probably got split up among the other 4 plants. I haven't seen Mom since then. That's Isabella. I don't know where she is. We have a new life with a new mom, and he talks about some of the new siblings that he now has. We see a really emotional 2 pages of him seeing Simon, who is the kind of class clown, being shipped off. But obviously they don't know it's being shipped up to be eaten. They just think he's found out, like someone's adopted him. But you see an emotional Phil kind of have to deal with all of this because he's the only one that knew. They informed him to sort of be the leader of the younger kids. And you see sort of the emotional stuff that he has to deal with here, of kind of having to do what Ray, Emma, and Norman all had to learn, which was to keep that smiling face up and act like nothing's going wrong while dealing with the emotional kind of impact of what is happening. This is where Andrew actually arrives and talks to Phil because he knows who he is and says, I'd like to talk to you, in a pretty creepy way, with the idea that it seems like he's going to get information from Phil about, you know, I suppose stuff about his targets, basically. The specifics we're not really sure, but you know, that's what the setup is here. So yeah, And then what they do here, which I quite like, is that it's meant to be this month-long trip, but they basically just montage through it in about 2 or 3 pages. So the Kuvitadala expedition finishes basically in this chapter. We just see like 2 pages of them encountering a demon beast along the way. Emma takes it out very quickly, 1 arrow. Don and Gilda very impressed by the, I suppose now, veteran of the wilds, Emma. As we cut to the fact that they've made it to Kuvitadala. And it's this pretty cool location with all these kind of stone monuments stacked on top of each other. It is revealed at the start of the next chapter that it took 52 days to get there. So it's going to take the same amount to get back. So time is starting to become a big thing here. These expeditions, and they know that they have to do a bunch of them because they have to go to here, then they have to go to like the west and the east and stuff like that as well. And if they're all going to take this amount of months, they're going to be very tight by the end of this on how quickly they can do all of this. So they're looking for the Eye of Kuvitadala, and eventually Emma manages to find it. They see an arrow, they kind of follow it across, and Emma finds an eye symbol. And when she basically touches around the area where this eye symbol is, she has a vision. And it's a very interesting vision because she basically is like standing there, and kind of under her feet, like the ground sort of becomes this kind of like liquid. She sees this dragon demon whose eye is the Kuvitadala symbol. And she figures out that it's also the same symbol that's on the amulet that Mujika gave her. So a lot of connections beginning to be made here. She sees all these different visions of basically like the promise being made. I think they go even further back to, when they were at war, the agreement between the humans and the demons. And then what appears to be our first time getting to see him, the one that they go to see to make the promise to, the basically ruler of the demons, or the guy above the demons, whatever they call him, who has the weird symbol name. And he just says, "How rare, a live human." And Emma thinks it's like a child or something like that. And what's interesting here is like she's having a vision. No one else has this vision except her. But it seems like this guy is aware that she's watching this and says, "Right now you're just watching. You need to come properly. Next time from the entrance. Here there is nothing, but you can find anything. There is no entrance anywhere, but it's also everywhere. Then we can play." And she comes back, to the world basically, and it is revealed that no one else was able to see this, just her. We then get a bird's eye view of the area, and it's revealed that the stone monuments are all laid out when you look at it from above in the same symbol, basically of the ellipse and then the kind of circle in the middle, the eye symbol. So she reveals this to everyone, the dragon and the scenes from the past, the old Kuvitadala, the place where night and day were together, and also, I'm guessing I met him too. And this is where she takes the pendant and makes the comparison between it, and so on. So that's the big reveal, and she wonders, was the reason that she was able to see the vision because of that kind of pendant? And it begs her to ask the question, who is Mujika? How did Mujika know that basically this will happen? What is her significance as well? So she basically says this to everyone, and they ask the same questions we do. What on earth does that mean? The entrance that isn't anywhere but is everywhere, what's that about? You saw something like a temple and some golden water, similar to the pond you saw in Goldie Pond. So that same kind of water that isn't water, that like you can step in but it doesn't make you wet, and it doesn't really seem to have any effect. It's like it's water from like a different dimension or something like that. That water is obviously important here. It's some sort of unique water, and then a golden temple are the main important things are. So that's where they figure the north and east and west bits are important. So they decide to go back to the shelter, and then they'll go on the other expeditions. So this is where the time crunch sort of comes into play. We have to hurry. It's been 3.5 months since our escape. When we get back, it'll be 6 months. We have a 1.5 years left. We have to do this within a 1.5 years. As again, we cut to, I suppose, him and the dragon in the this other world, basically saying, "Come, come." And so, he's urging them to arrive as well. So, very interesting couple of chapters here in or around chapter 100. 102 is actually a very important chapter as well. So what we get here at the start is we're in a demon town. And what I like about this a lot is that we get to see that the demon town is just normal. The only thing that's odd about it really is that instead of, I suppose, in a human town, you'd see the meat and it being like, beef, chicken, your standard meats. It is just human stuff here. And to them, it's normal. But obviously to our human characters, it's not normal. And it helps to really, I suppose, humanize is the word, but, because you don't want to say demonize, even though technically that would be the term. But, humanize here, it helps to kind of create a sort of, normality between the two species here, seeing this happen. And then especially with the reveal in this chapter that one of the places that they had to go to was to go undercover in these demon towns. They've all seen just day to day what it's like for these demons. This is where we get a big time skip. It's now September 2047 is basically the present day. Approximately a year and 7 months since the destruction of Goldie Pond hunting ground. This is where the demons are it's been more than a year since their master disappeared, Lord Bayon. And we see just these two younger demons just go up to basically what is, I suppose, a food shop for demons and just, get some food, which is human parts in these vats. But that's just what they eat. It's just normal. It's like going to the shop for food for them. And it again, I think it's a very effective scene in all of that. So we see that they got back and we have a little bit of a kind of cutting through time here. July 2047, 4 months after they returned from the Kuvitadala search, after the search, so it took them basically that much time to get back. They do research on everything to basically what are the possible locations for the Golden Water and the Golden Temple. Those are the two important things to figure this all out. So they figure out that the west side has 7 possible areas for the Golden Water, 3 possible areas for the temple. It's revealed that they went out in around February 2047 to the east locations, and they all turned up empty. So the west is where everything worked. So that's where it's revealed, that Emma's group is now undercover, and we see them wearing demon masks, all covered up in big robes that cover their feet and stuff like that, just walking through next to the people who eat them, basically, to survive. So it's a very, very interesting thing, as they're just watching the normality for the demons of just walking around carrying vats, jars, basically, of human body parts that they eat, and how they must feel in all of that. But anyway, so here is where, it's revealed they take off their masks when they escape. And we get a look at, I suppose, our characters now older, in that we've basically had, for the most part, like a 1.5 year time skip. Nearly a 2-year time skip here, given what's happened. And I like the design changes, and that you can tell everyone's taller. Most of the characters have their hair is that little bit longer. You can tell there's a little bit more maturity there, but they're still kids. They've only aged from basically being 11, 12 to being now in or around 13. But it is kind of significant because they're at those ages where you really notice that kind of growth. But anyway, they return home. So the idea is that it takes them this amount of time to get back, and we're now in the September 2047. And they come back and they reveal, we found it, we found the temple and the Golden Water. So, pretty incredible here what they've done here. That the 7 Walls is this very important thing for the series. It's taken so long to reveal any information about it, and then in the space of 4 chapters, they basically reveal, we found all of the important information about it. And if not for this search for the shelters, we get it revealed right now, basically, what the mystery is behind it all. So chapter 103 then is half setting up the arrival of Andrew and his squad arriving at the actual shelter, and then half informing us of like, wait, you cut past a lot of this, what did they actually find? So that's what they do here. The golden water was found in the third possible location. The temple was found in the second. And they find the temple, and it's this interesting place that has all these different smaller spires. It is just a temple. They can see right inside of it. And they see all these different sort of visuals and statues. They see the Eye of Kuvitadala. But the most important stuff is that on the ceiling, they see the day and night. They see on the ceiling it's this mural where half of it is like the world with the sun out, and then half of it is like the stars and the dark side. So it's half day and half night, so they realize that's exactly what it is. And they figured that, oh, there must be a connection between what's drawn and all of the ceilings, and that's how they figure it out. It's, if you connect all of the ceiling paintings of the 6 towers of the temple, that's how you kind of figure it out. So, and it's revealed, yeah, so you got it, you know, not just a hint, but the actual entrance and how to get in. Yeah, and thanks to you guys, you all helped us get here. So they have 2 months left now before the timeline with everything going on, which, let's go back to the Phil thing again. They still think Phil is at Grace Field, but he isn't. So when they get there, they're going to find out that he's not there, that presumably Grace Field has been abandoned. Because again, I sort of skip past as well the fact that like Isabella they don't mention anything about what she's doing. So she's still out there in some capacity. And for the most part, every time Emma remembers Isabella, it is usually in a positive light, which I do find quite interesting in that they are definitely keeping it open, the fact that like ultimately Isabella let Emma go. She didn't try to stop the escape when it really came down to it in that final moment. So it's going to be interesting whatever appearance Isabella makes next, what's going on. So they want to go to that place, the 7 Walls, make a new promise. And the reveal here is, how do you get in? They all want to know. Where's the entrance? How do you get there? Emma pulls out this kind of jar, and she says, with the golden water. So she's bottled some of this special water that isn't wet, and that is the significance to how they do it. So the idea seems to be is that it is some sort of there's some aspect of like transportation to this, of like a second world almost, in that the way they've talked in the past about transferring between the human world and the demon world didn't necessarily feel like it was literally just crossing a border or half and half, that it was this like deeper thing to it, and that borderline magical aspect to it, that it wasn't just some weird elevator that went through the planet, that it was almost like some sort of teleporter thing, that the elevator goes through the special water and ends up somewhere else. So the golden water has a big significance to it. But before she can explain all of this, this is when it's revealed that Andrew has arrived. They are under attack, and that's basically what we get here. We can go through this fairly quickly. The last 3 chapters of this volume are very, very action-centric. It's basically just a lot of them arriving in, the kind of panic initially, setting the stage for where all the characters are. The significant thing is that Andrew, for some reason, has information about the entire layout of where all the cameras are and most of the rooms within the actual shelter. The only room he doesn't know about is the secret room with the phone. And the 2 characters who are in that room at the start of this sequence are Lucas and Rossi. So they're there, and thankfully Lucas is able to kind of basically jump out, take out one of the guys immediately, take his uniform and gun, and then send Rossi on with his radio. So this becomes a significant thing here, because initially they're taken by surprise because this military squad knows everything that's going on here. But the kids are then able to avoid the military guys because they have the radio information. Rossi is listening in to everything that's being said about the positions, and that is the big kind of turning point here. But it's not before they have an encounter. So before they even meet up with Rossi to get this information, they're going out to the outside exit, which is the upper bit before they found the shelter all those volumes ago. and they're heading there when two of the kids basically drop dead. Andrew has killed the two of them, shot in the head. They just collapse from the ladder right in front of everyone. One of the kids, who they name here Chris, takes what appears to be a grazing shot to the head. He is knocked down, Emma kind of saves him by tackling him to the ground from taking most of the damage. But Andrew arrives on the scene here. He says, "I'm here to kill you all. There's no point in hiding." And notably, the way he talks about them, he says, he calls them as a group children bred as food. So he sort of dehumanizes them here. And as we'll see over the remaining chapters of this kind of arc, that he's very much going to underestimate them, because from his perspective as one of the humans who, I suppose, assists in keeping humans as food on this side of the demon world, he just looks down on them as food and not as, like, we know the characters as being incredibly intelligent. So he underestimates them to a certain degree. He reveals, "In the last year and 9 months, I found and killed all of your supporters." That's how we know the name of this shelter, the internal structure, everything about that. So that's basically what we get here. Emma tries to kind of talk to him. He says, we don't want to break the promise or do anything like that. We just want to live protect the people we care about, live our lives. And Andrew actually says, "The 7 walls, you know about that. That's not the point. Now, that's even more of a reason why we want to kind of kill you now." And he says, "Even if the world will allow it, we need to keep this order. The lives you deserve, you want to protect them. You got it all wrong. Your food, your lives never existed from the beginning. It's all an illusion," as he throws a gas kind of grenade in there. And then the last chapter is basically everyone is going to escape. But obviously they stay away. They meet up with Rossi at this point in time, so they can escape through the kind of underground system around here, through all the emergency exits that the shelter leads through in the area. And basically what happens is that everyone does manage to get out. So they're on the surface again. Everyone's out. We see Lucas also manages to use the gun he's taken to snipe one of the other guys. So 2 out of 8 of the guards have been killed. Lucas is undercover. And the last couple of chapters here are basically the adults here, Lucas and also Hugo, deciding that they are going to stay behind here. They are going to allow the kids to escape by basically holding the line. They're going to go back into the shelter to try and take out the other 6 so that they won't be able to come after them. And the reason for this is because earlier on, Ray considered the situation and was like, the only way we're going to get out of this is if we all fight back against these humans, which would need us all to accept the idea that we are willing to kill other humans. And part of the reason Hugo and Lucas stay behind here is because it's Hugo and Lucas doing this because they don't want the kids to sort of have to deal with that. Hugo says to Ray, "You understand, right?" And they flash back to Ray considering, like, we have to kill people, don't we? And him thinking, like, Ray kind of thinking, I could do it, but can anyone else? And Hugo making that decision up for him of like, no, we'll do it so you don't have to. And, they tell them before they leave, don't worry, we'll catch up soon. Get Chris to safety so he can be treated. And they go back into the shelter and say, back to our nostalgic shelter. Yeah, perfect place. Perfect for a final resting place. So they sort of know this is a bit of a suicide mission. They're skilled, but they're going up against trained guards. They took the first 2 by surprise. They have the advantage of going in with the gas masks, bulletproof armor, just like the other guards, and being sort of undercover. But it is 6 versus 2, including Andrew, who's obviously, I suppose the idea is he's better than everyone else. But really, really cool ending, I think. Setting up this kind of really emotional thing of the kids are now going to be separated from the adults, and the adults are planning to make a sacrifice here. It's an interesting one, and that obviously the shelterer sort of being taken out of the equation at this point is an interesting one. And kind of the question almost comes up of like, Is the shelter just done for, or if they manage to kill all the guards, can they go back into the shelter? I don't think so. I assume Peter Rattray, after a certain amount of time, wouldn't hear back from Andrew if he was killed, and then would just be like, oh, well, they were killed going to this last location, the shelter's there. So my interpretation of this is that the shelter's location is gone at this point in time. They have to find somewhere else to go. So it is this kind of big change of basically what needs to happen now is that, again, there's an overall time crunch going forward in the series of they've only got 2 months to get to the 7 walls, make the new promise, and go back for Phil and everyone who they don't know is actually in a different farm at this point. And they also want to do other stuff like taking out all the mass production facilities and all that sort of stuff as well along the way. And they have to form a new base to do that. So they have to get a certain level of stability before they even make the trip to the 7 walls to plan how they're going to do it. So a lot has to happen here, but I like this volume because a lot did happen. I'd be a little critical of just the way they went about doing some of the 7 walls explanation. Some of it was really cool with regards to the visuals of like Emma seeing the vision and stuff like that. But I thought it was a little, I think, muddy how they went about explaining, like connecting the initial like riddle that they had of like go in a circle, then go up and down, night and day, and how they went about basically saying this is how we interpret this from that riddle to get meaning from it. I don't feel that was portrayed particularly well. I don't know if it's just that we're not meant to know at this point of time what that is, but it does feel a little bit weird that like Emma's taking out this kind of golden water and being like, yeah, we got it. It's right here. We know exactly what to do. We found the temple, which was in the vision, which helps us somehow. Like, it's definitely a weird one. There definitely needs to be a big explanation, I think, at some point to just connect everything together in terms of what are we actually talking about here? Is this an alternate dimension, or is it just a secret location? What's going on there? So that being a little bit muddy, but ultimately I like some of what they did there in terms of creating mystery around like Mujika, who the demon lord guy is, what the demon dragon thing is about, and all that sort of stuff, and then setting up a really big action thing that is more dealing with the conflict of humans versus humans and the kids, should they fight or not fight, and you know, in a way, like, what's Andrew fighting for? Like, his opinion on this is kind of unusual in that, like, okay, from his perspective, you know, these are just the generations of kids and a couple of adults who've grown up from, you know, those people who were part of the promise, who were left behind as food for the demons. Should they deserve to have any, like, agency, autonomy or not, because they're meant to be food by the nature of the agreement? And, you know, what's going on here? So I like that sort of more moral kind of quandary in this situation of like obviously Andrew's a villain in this, but that given, I suppose, how he's potentially grown up with the world, that's the way he sees that group of people, that they're meant to be food and they're rebelling against that. So he's shutting down their rebellion because they're meant to be food. It's at least somewhat interesting that he's not just he has some like reasoning behind why he's doing what he's doing, which is at least interesting. But yeah, definitely an interesting one. Big kind of lore reveal sort of happening here. Time skips was quite interesting. That you could question prior to this volume how they were going to go about, you know, dealing with that 2-year time gap. But for them to do it all at basically the exact same time, I found to be very interesting, and ultimately I'm glad that they skipped through a lot of that, because a lot of it was just them going on the expeditions through, you know, the territory where there are demons, and they didn't need to show us all of that. We know they're all able to survive on their own outside. They all have survival skills. They know how to deal with the basic demon beasts fairly easily. So it's just a matter of either you spend hundreds and hundreds of chapters focusing on here's their trip here that took 7 months, here's their trip here that took 7 months. Instead, you condense it all down to, no, we don't need to see the trips that failed and that didn't find anything. We're showing you the significant parts of here's where they found the clue about the golden water. Here's where they found the temple. Here's them undercover in a demon town and them being around demons just acting normally. Not out to hunt humans, but just that humans are what they eat to survive. I thought there was a lot of nice stuff that happened along the way, while also getting to, I suppose, longer term storytelling for the series that is, I think, very well needed. It could have been super extended out, but I like that borderline. They're presenting you that like almost the finale of the series is happening much sooner than you actually think. That realistically, The Promised Neverland might not be one of these giant, 500-600 chapter series. Like, we could be sub 200 here if we really get through the content. But that it doesn't seem like we're going to be going on for like that level of One Piece or even Naruto type time. But yeah, that's my thoughts on volume 12 of the manga, and yeah, we'll go on to the volume 13, 14 stuff, and I'm trying to get through the last 30 or so chapters that we have to go here as soon as possible. So I think within the next week or two I should get through a lot of the volume stuff that's remaining, and we'll catch up very quickly. So there are my thoughts on this volume. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.